Prologue. I flipped through the CT scan images. The diagnosis obvious. The lungs were matted with invariable tumors, the spine deformed, a full lobe of liver, the cancer widely and I was a neurologist entering my final year of training. Over the last 6 years, I'd examined scores of such scans on the off chance that some producer might benefit the patient, but the scan was different. It was my own. I wasn't in the radiology suit, wearing my scrubs and white coat. I was dressed in a patient gown and the IV pole using the computer. The nurse had left in my hospital room with my wife, Lucy, and internist at my side. I went through each sequence again, the lung window, the bone window, and the liver window, scrolling from top to bottom, then left to right, then front to back, just as I had trained to do, as if I might find something that would change the diagnosis. We lay together on the hospital bed, Lucy quietly, as if reading from a script. Do you think there is any possibility that it's something else? No, I said. We held each other tightly, like young lovers. In the past year, we both suspected, but refused to believe or even discuss that a cancer was growing inside me. About 6 months before, I had started losing weight and having ferocious back pain. When I dressed in the morning, my belt clenched one, then the 2 notches tighter. I went to my primary care doctor, an old classmate from Stanford. Her sister had died suddenly as a neurosurgery intern after contracting a viral infection, and so she'd taken a mental watch on my health. When I arrived, however, I found a different doctor in her office. My classmate was maternity leave, dressed in a thin blue gown on a cold examining table. I described the symptoms to her. Of course, I said, if this were board's exam questions, 35-year-old with unexplained weight loss and new onset back pain, the obvious answer would be C, cancer. But maybe it's just that I'm working too hard. I don't know. I'd like to get an MRI to be sure. I think we should get X-ray first, she said. MRIs for back pain are expensive, and unnecessary images had lately been a major national point of cost-saving impulse. But the value of a scan also depends on what you are looking for. X-rays are largely useless for cancer. Still, for many doctors, ordering an MRI at this early stage is, she said. X-rays aren't perfectly sensitive, but it takes sense to start here. But it makes sense to start there. How about we get reflection extension X-rays? Then maybe the more realistic diagnosis here is symptomatic spawn. From the reflection in the wall mirror, I could see her Googling it. It's a pair of fractions affecting up a 5% of people, and a frequent cause of back pain in the young. Okay, I'll order them then, thanks, I said. Why was I so alternative in a surgeon's coat, but so meek in patient's gown? The truth was, I knew more about back pain than she did. Half of my training as a neurologist had involved disorders of the spine, but maybe a spontaneous was more likely. It did affect a sacrification perfect percent of young adults, and cancer is in the spine is your 30s. The odds of that couldn't be more than 1 in 10,000. Even if it were 100 times more common than that, it'd still be less common than it's spontaneous. Maybe I was just freaking myself out. The x-ray looked fine. We chalked out the symptoms up to hard work in a organ body. Scheduled a follow-up appointment, and I went back to finish my last case of the day. The weight loss slowed and the back pain became tolerable. A healthy dose of ibuprofen got me through the day, and after all, there were that many of these grueling 14-hour days left. My journey from medical students to professors of neurology was almost complete. After 10 years of restless training, I was determined to persevere for my next 15 months until residency ended. I had entered the respect of my seniors, won national awards, and was fielding jobs offered jobs from several major universities. My program director at Stanford had directly sat me down and said, "Paul, I think you'll be the number one candidate for my job you will apply for. Just as an FYI, I will be starting at fluency search of people who are like you are. No promises, of course, but it's something you should consider." At age 36, I had reached the mountaintops. I could see the promised land from Glee to Draco to the Mediterranean Sea. I could see a nice catamaran on the sea that Lucy, our children, and I would take out for the weekend. I could see the tension in my back unwinding as my work schedule eased and life became more manageable. I could see myself finally becoming the husband I had promised to be. Then a few weeks later, I began having bouts of severe chest pain. Had I bumped into something at work? Cracked a rib somehow? Some nights I'd wake up on the soaked sheets, dripping sweat. My weight began dropping again, more rapidly now, from 175 to 145 pounds. I developed a cough. A little doubt reminded me one Saturday afternoon, Lucy and I were laying in the sun in Orleans Park in San Francisco, waiting to meet her sister. She glimpsed my phone, through which displayed medical database, which results frequency of cancer in 30s to 40s-year-old. What? She said. I didn't realize you were actually worried about this. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say either. So what would you tell me about it? She said. She asked. She was upset because she had been worried about it too. She was upset because I wasn't talking to her about it. She was upset because I had promised her on life and given her another. Can you please tell me why you're not confident in me? She asked. I turned off my phone. Let's get some ice cream, I said. So the summary for this section of the chapter, which is prology, it's just talking about how Paul gets cancer and the symptoms he's having, and he goes to a doctor's and they tell him what happened, and he just says it's like feeling weird because like he was a doctor and now he's in like in the patient suit, and how that kind of is like affecting like how did I get here, or like saying like I would have never thought I like would get this. So